You probably know them best for their jackets, or maybe it's their mountainscape logo. No matter what you think when you think Patagonia, it's definitely a fascinating brand that makes for a great case study of the intersection between profitability and sustainability. But in order to understand what makes Patagonia unique, we have to start from the beginning, and it all began with Yvon Chouinard. This rock climber turned founder of Patagonia is not exactly who you'd picture when you think millionaire apparel tycoon. In fact, he's actually quite the opposite. Quiet and outdoorsy, Chouinard hates corporations. He's no genius either, and was actually a D student in school. His passion has always been nature, which he channeled through climbing, biking, fishing, and even falconry. He might not be the most conventional founder, but Yvon Chouinard is not someone who just happened to get lucky. Before Patagonia, he put ice climbing on the map as a sport by founding his own company that made hand-forged climbing gear. This company was a precursor to Patagonia in many ways, including its principles. A great example of this is when Chouinard discovered that his best-selling product was actually damaging the rocks at Yosemite. Instead of conveniently ignoring this information, he introduced brand new tools and began using his company as a platform to advocate for clean climbing. As we will continue to see with Patagonia, Chouinard refuses to compromise on his love for the earth even when it might conflict with growing his business. The origins of Patagonia are just about as unconventional as Chouinard himself. It all began with Chouinard selling rugby shirts to American climbers. He discovered these shirts while on a trip to Scotland and was immediately drawn to them because the collars prevented his climbing gear from hurting his neck. When it got to the point where he couldn't import the shirts fast enough, he decided to try his hand at making his own. It was then that Patagonia was born. 3 years later, in 1973, Chouinard was ready for a storefront of his own. And so it was the first Patagonia store opened in the back of a meatpacking plant in Ventura, California, where it is still headquartered today. Now, Patagonia did not become the household name it is today overnight. After originally selling very technical climbing clothes, they slowly expanded into other rugged activities such as camping and surfing. It took decades, but they eventually started to produce apparel for a broad consumer audience. Today, you can't walk across a college campus any time of the year without seeing Patagonia. It's actually quite remarkable how such a niche company was able to find its way into the mainstream. While timing and ingenuity certainly worked out in Patagonia's favor, they also had something else to differentiate themselves from other brands: principles. Chouinard established Patagonia with the mission of doing no unnecessary harm to the environment. This has often meant going to extraordinary lengths in production and marketing, but that's the Patagonia way. Perhaps Patagonia's most famous practice is the earth tax Chouinard imposed on the company in 1986. Practically speaking, this means that Patagonia donates 10% of their total profits to grassroots environmental organizations around the world. In 2016, Patagonia took this even further and donated 100% of their Black Friday profits to these organizations. Clearly, Patagonia values being environmentally conscious and unconventional. Both of these attributes are also evident in their advertising campaigns. Patagonia's first ever television commercial, which cost them $700,000 to run, was not a minute-long catalog of all the crazy outdoor activities where their apparel could be worn. Instead, it was a celebration of our Earth and a call to hold politicians accountable for making sure our land remains beautiful. It's honestly hard to even tell it's an ad for Patagonia until the very end when the logo shows up. But this is nothing compared to Patagonia's 2011 Black Friday ad in the New York Times. This full-page ad shows a Patagonia jacket with the heading over it, "Don't buy this jacket." No, this is not just some clever reverse psychology from Patagonia's marketing team. If you read the body of the ad, you will see that it details the steep environmental cost of creating the jacket and establishes that you should be careful not to buy anything you don't need. What Patagonia is trying to encourage here is conscious consumership. At the end of the day, they can't actually control the motives of their consumers, but you still have to respect their effort and dedication to their values. There's truly a lot we can learn from Patagonia. It's not immune to corporate greed by any means, but it at least attempts to do good through its business. Patagonia is a primary example of a mission-focused business. Using its eco-friendly brand, It has built a billion-dollar plus business while still sticking to its principles of sustainability and conservation. And that's all there really is to Patagonia. Their business isn't especially complex, but there's a reason why few have dared to replicate it. It's one thing for a company to claim their convictions, but it's a whole other beast to actually act on them.